So, Google has been up to some shady business recently, and some of you might already be saying to yourself, well, duh, it's Google. But for those of you who don't quite understand the situation and what's going on, let me ask you a few questions. Welcome. My name is Zachary Chavez, and I'm going to be bringing up an issue regarding Google that was brought up earlier this year. So, to those of you who do have a Google account, can you tell me why you even have it? Some of you might be able to tell me actually, but to those of you who can't really put an answer to it, let me ask you a few more questions. Do you think that it was just because it was the first search engine that you got when you got your device? Or do you think it's just because you've always used Google growing up? Well, let me tell you the real reason you actually probably do use Google, and that's because Google is a monopoly. Some of you might already be asking, how is Google a monopoly? And some of you might even agree with the statement that, yeah, Google is a monopoly. But do you know why exactly they are? Well, it's because Google is illegally maintaining its monopoly over search engines. So to make reference, and this is going to sound super random, but mostly all of you all, or probably even all of you all, have heard of the dark web. You probably don't know what it is, but you do know that it's some shady underground overlay. And to that, yeah, you're mostly right. By definition, and excuse me, I do not remember it, so I will have to look. By definition, the dark web is content that exists on darknets, which are just overlay networks that use the internet but require specific software or permission to access. And it's a place where private computer networks can both communicate and conduct business anonymously. And again, you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with Google? But Google is essentially doing the exact same thing. Alice Fulwood, a co-host of the Money podcast from The Economics, explained that there's been an ongoing struggle for the past couple of years between the US Department of Justice and Google. This issue had originally started in 2020 under the Trump administration, but had been put on the backseat under President Biden's term. This case has been brought back up recently, and it's been brought up to light that Google is paying tech companies up to billions of dollars a year to be the first search engine on their devices. It's been totaled that Google is paying up to $26 billion a year for these deals, and paying a whopping $20 billion to Apple alone. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing when you look at it, if it wasn't for the fact that they're using their size to drown out competition in the market. So yeah, since Google has these deals, with so much search traffic going on, they're easily able to manipulate and administrate the ad market, regulating not only the prices for these ads, but what's being able to be put up on them as well. This means that Google can stomp out the competition in the search engine marketplace, abusing their dominance, thus labeling Google as a monopoly. There's still something that I haven't covered though, and that's the issue regarding what the US Department of Justice has been doing about all of this. You see, the US Department of Justice has been trying to crack down on tech companies for years, but has been failing. But this time is different. The courts have sided with the US Department of Justice for once, and they are demanding certain proposed remedies from Google. First, they're demanding that Google either cuts down their costs or completely stops paying tech companies to be the first search engine on their devices. This would hopefully pave the way for other search engines that might not get the most attention, like Bing, Yahoo, Ask.com, or Baidu. And if these cuts are mandated towards Google, this might lead to Apple to look for an alternative, like creating a search engine of their own. And this what if sounds a whole lot more realistic, considering how Google pays for 1/5 of Apple's net income. And for you visual learners, this is what it looks like. Apple would also immediately rush to response, considering how in 2023 they became the world's top phone seller. And the fact that there is 2.2 billion active Apple devices worldwide, with 90% of Gen Zers owning an iPhone. There's 2.47 billion Gen Zers. You see the point. Google obviously isn't going to sit by and let these go through, so they're more than likely going to appeal these remedies. One thing they might turn to in these appeals is the rise of AI, like ChatGPT for instance. They may argue that AI is a new competitor, arguing that 8% of Americans do use ChatGPT as their primary search engine. And one thing that does worry both the Department of Justice and the judges is the possibility that Google may monopolize the use of generative AI using its already established monopoly. Google is already starting to distribute its AI tools, like the AI summaries that you see at the top of search results. And they're able to do this because they have so much prior search data, which is worrying both the Department of Justice and the judges. Authorities are keeping a close watch on the situation and proposing possible remedies for the issue. Speaking of tools that Google has, I feel like we aren't really aware of just how many they have. To list a few, they have Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Forms, Calendar, Gmail, even Google Maps. And there's a ton more. That's just not even close to how many they actually have. One tool I feel like most of us have forgotten they have, and I feel like it's actually quite scary to think about, is Google Earth. Google has things like Google Maps, and it shows, directions and road lines, but I feel like a lot of other apps have that, so it's not really that special, but Google has mapped the Earth with pictures. And I feel like none of us have really given that any thought at all. And I feel like it's a bit odd that we really haven't thought about it, how a search engine has mapped the entire Earth. Even you probably remember a time where you used Google Earth. Like if you were just at a computer, you were bored one day, you probably just logged on and you zoomed into some random place on the Earth and see what's going on. And I feel like none of us really give it any thought. They actually have so many ways of mapping the Earth. They have their Google Street Cars, they have aerial views, they even have these portable backpack cameras that you can use like in mountainous areas where you can't really get it with other areas. They even have Google Space. They mapped space too. It's called Google Space Station. It's crazy, guys. And a large part of this deals with the fact that Google bought a company called Keyhole in 2004. Keyhole was founded in 2001 and was originally used for real estate and planning, and was struggling financially until the Iraq War in 2003. News stations soon became interested in the company, and soon enough the CIA did as well, starting to invest into their geospace intelligence, in which Google later bought, in so gaining all of Keyhole's clients as well, which included the CIA. Google is also 100% involved with the federal government, seeing how they have a whole department made specifically for managing contracts with them, and it's called Google Public Sector, which they make millions off these contracts, which then they further use to monopolize their search engine. In 2004, it was also found out that those Street View cars that Google has had been stealing Wi-Fi data using hidden routers found inside the car, stealing things like email addresses, passwords, search histories, and network information. And coincidentally, when the Electronic Privacy Information Center filed a complaint to the Federal Trade Commission, which is a law enforcement agency that protects consumers and promotes healthy competition in the United States economy, the FTC decided not to take up the complaint, basically allowing Google to do whatever they want, even though they were in violation of both the US Wiretap Act and the Federal Communications Act. And I feel like this is an issue that we kind of just push off as a society, trading our privacy for our safety. And again, I feel like we've come to the conclusion that the pros do outweigh the cons in this situation, seeing how we are a lot more safe with Google in charge, like with Google Maps, for instance. When was the last time that any of us really got lost when we had our phone with us and we had Google Maps open? So even though Google is this big monopoly, they do good for the people and the consumers. Lastly, here are some takeaways from the case and what I think we should do moving forward regarding Google. Again, Google uses its dominance to maintain its monopoly, running deals with tech companies and running the ad space, as well as crushing any chance for other search engines to get into the market. We also have the remedies from the Department of Justice and the judges asking that Google cut spending for these deals or completely in general, as well as sharing its search data, hopefully opening up the opportunity for these search engines to apply it to their own and hopefully become a competitor. There's also the remedy about AI, but that one's still a bit iffy. Lastly, I think we should all be careful when it comes to using our devices, as it's been seen that these companies do listen to our conversations. Not that we should stop using these devices or stop using these engines, but just be a little more careful on what we agree to before agreeing to anything. And obviously there's factors that we can't change, like the streetcar incident, but we can't really do anything about that, so just don't worry about that too much. Lastly, thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a nice day.